Hi, I'm Kenny Klaus, and this is State 48 Homeowner.
Hey everybody, it's that time of year. Things are starting to cool down, which I'm excited about because here in Arizona, we earn our winters and I love them so stinking much. But as we come out of it, let's talk about the change in weather. And today we've got a special guest, Rob Martin. Welcome, Rob.
Thank you.
So you're a real estate agent on the Klaus team, have been for years.
Yes.
But you've got an interesting background.
This is a second, maybe a third career for me. My first one was meteorology. I'm a meteorologist.
And I love it. We've got a clip of you. This is in Bakersfield, if I remember correctly.
As we head through the rest of this evening here in the valley, looking for sunny skies to continue. Winds right around 10 miles per hour. Those will be dying down here through 11 p.m. By that point, temperatures still in the lower 80s. A lot of the rain was coming down, and you can still see a little bit of activity, but it is starting to die down. In the valley, clear skies, and it's going to continue that way here for the foreseeable future. Out to the coast, we are going to be looking at the marine layer kind of pushing its way on in, so temperatures out there are going to be cool.
So yeah, I used to work in television. I went to school for the actual meteorology degree, which was, I wanted to be a weatherman since I was 5 years old. And, I kind of a couple different ideas here and there.
So did you have the blue screen at home?
No,
did you have like a map on the wall? You're like, what?
No, but I did in elementary school. I would get up and get the forecast and bring the newspaper in with the back page, and tell the kids what the weather was, and they all didn't care. But, it was something I had fun
I'd
with.
like to say that surprises me. But. So, You started in weather.
Yep.
You got to learn all that. You went to a couple different markets, Bakersfield, where else?
So I started off in, I guess mainly behind the scenes in Portland, Oregon. I was a weather producer there at a college, and I actually interned there while I was still in college, so it kind of turned into a job for me. And this was right in 2008, so, coming out of college, job prospects weren't the best at the time. Yeah. And coincidentally, I guess the housing market too, But then from there, I got my first full-time job, and I was super excited, but it was in Bismarck, North Dakota. Talk about fun for a 20-something-year-old kid, right out of college.
So I'm guessing their weather is kind of like in Phoenix, just the other end of the spectrum where like, hey, weather today is just as cold as yesterday. So
the funny part about that job is I'd be sitting out there, and it was, literally I've been outside in minus 40 degree true air temperature, no wind chill. It'll knock your socks off. But I'm the idiot that's sitting out there at the microphone saying it's cold, don't go outside. And I'm sitting there freezing. It was a lot of fun, and it was, learned a lot about thunderstorms and adverse weather. You had all that and tornadoes in the summers, and then you go to just bitter, freezing cold, Arctic blasts, we hear that, and, the whole country freaks out, but it's like, no, you lived it every day up in that northern plains part of the country. And so it was a great training ground for me. And then from there, I tried, I was looking for a job. My contract was coming up, and that's how you move up in television. You go from smaller TV markets, and you go bigger. And so I was looking for the first place that was warmer.
That was not Bismarck.
It was not Bismarck. Now, I had a lot of fun there. I met a lot of great people. And it was definitely a great experience for me, so I don't want to knock it too bad. And but at the same time, it was extreme weather to live in.
Yeah.
And so I ended up in Bakersfield, California, which turned out that's where I met my wife. So
it worked out.
It worked out fantastic.
And so eventually you found your way to Arizona.
I did.
And we've got pretty unique weather here.
I love it. It's when I first moved here. So basically, my wife and I were living, at the time we were just dating, we were living in Omaha, Nebraska. And her contract at the TV station she was working at that time was up, and we didn't particularly like living there. It was a great town. We had a lot of fun in Omaha. There's a lot of great stuff to do. But the summers were hot, sticky, and the winters were shoveling snow, and it's like, all right, let's get out of here. So my wife was like, hey, what about Arizona? And I was like, oh man, it's super hot here. Like, I'd been down here once for a spring break. That's all I'd ever been to Arizona. And she went to ASU Cronkite Journalism School. And so she was like, okay, let's go do this. And I was closer to my family. Okay, go for it. Not turning back. I love it. It was definitely tough to get used to the heat at first, but you get used to it. Yep. And the 9 months of the year that it's awesome makes up for the 3 months that it's really hot. Versus,
see, my definition is a little different. It extends a little bit because I'm a little miserable from March to mid-October.
Yeah.
But the rest of it is glorious.
It's fantastic.
But like you said, you get used to it. You just...
I don't know. It's like your body just acclimates, and I think there is some science to it. Like your blood thins out, gets used to it, whatever. But it's the first one was a doozy. The first summer was a doozy, but you get over it. And now I can sit outside wearing my uniform and being 110 degrees in the shade. I'm okay.
Yeah.
But the cool thing about the weather here is I get to enjoy it. And that's one of the big differences about working as a meteorologist. A bad day at work is when you had really cool storms. Because when you had really cool storms coming through, you're on TV the whole time saying, guys, watch out. This is coming down the pipeline. Whereas now I get to sit on my back porch and watch these storms just come through and geek out on my radar and, do weatherman things.
So a couple of the things that we notice a lot is the heat, the lack of humidity.
Yep.
But I think one of the things that a lot of people don't understand a whole lot is our monsoons. And I'm just going to say monsoon / dust storm / haboob, because I think to most Arizonans, they're three of the same things.
So, yes, it is. Now, it all kind of works hand in hand. Part of that is the hot temperatures and the dryness, interacting with the moisture that comes in from the warm waters off the Gulf of Mexico. That all plays a role into it. And it's kind of a season that starts, we go into summer. It used to be here, it started after 3 days consecutively, 55-degree dew point. Now, it's kind of changed where they, the National Weather Service kind of start promoting, hey, June is the start and going through September. And that's for marketing purposes.
Yeah.
I mean, the 3 days of 55-degree dew point, okay, yeah, it means we have some, juice in the air. We have some conditions to pop off thunderstorms and things like that, that, will create these storms. But for when you're looking at protecting property, life, and that's what the National Weather Service job is, that's why it's just easier. It's like, hey, June, this is when we're starting our campaign, starting to warn people about it. And I mean, at the end of the day, you use the same basic safety, rules that you would anywhere that has a thunderstorm. Don't be out golfing or sitting in a boat when you have a thunderstorm. That's kind of one of those things like, yeah, not a good idea. You don't want to be the tallest object, standing around, but at the same time, you don't want to go stand next to a tree because, that's the tallest. Yep. So all those same safety factors, come into play for our storms. It's just, how they propagate and, when they come through, it's, we're sweating, it's hot, and then all of a sudden we see the storm come through, and the first thing we do is go outside because it feels like relief when we get these storms that come through here, and it's just awesome to watch.
Yeah, because you're inside, and like I'll have my Arcadia door, it's closed but open, it doesn't have curtains on it, and all of a sudden you see the entire room go orange, and then hey, we got something cool going outside, and so yeah, we'll run outside because the wind is fun to watch. It's, it's different, like you said.
Yeah, and I mean, my 3-year-old, she loves the rain. I mean, that's like, so as soon as it comes, she's like, let's go, get the rain boots on, let's go out and play. So pretty much the big thing with monsoons is during the summer months, we see kind of an overall shift in the weather patterns. And so we see a upper level high that kind of that goes over the desert southwest. And pretty much that sets up the wind patterns to where it can suck moisture up from the warm tropical, moisture of the down the Baja Peninsula into Mexico and then the Gulf of Mexico.
So if we didn't have the Gulf of Mexico, would we have monsoons?
Well, we wouldn't have the moisture source. So no, technically we wouldn't, because you need the ingredients to make these storms happen. And in a general sense, in thunderstorms, you need lift, instability, some sort of boundary, hot, cold, difference in air, and not thinking of freezing cold, but from 110 degree air to 80 degree air, that's a pretty big difference. And then you need some sort of moisture source, which is going to be obviously the oceans. And those create the atmospheric conditions to create these big storms. Now, when you go out in the morning and you can kind of feel it, and not everyone can, but if you've lived anywhere that's a little bit has some humidity, then you step out in the morning. We're used to being dry.
Yep.
I go out, it's like whoa, I can feel humidity, even though it might be only 30%, 20%, but for us, that's, quite a bit. And that's like, all right, there might be a chance of storms today. And that's where it's like, okay, I geek out on it, obviously, because of my background. I got the weather station at home, all that fun stuff. And so then it's like, all right, I start looking. And the big thing we see here where the storms start to pop off are from the mountains. Because when the air hits it, goes up the mountains, as air rises, it cools.
Yeah.
And that condenses, and that creates, more raindrops that can fall. And the instability of that, that's where the thunderstorms come, the big towering cumulus clouds you see. They always start off when you're out looking over the superstitions or up towards the San Francisco peaks. That's where you start to see them building. And then now when we're talking about the monsoons that are coming from the south, okay, so we still have all those ingredients, and they're coming down, as the weather flows, which would be dictated by the winds. And the winds are dictated by the pressures. So it's all kind of interconnected.
And so the pressures being like Great Basin and...
So basically, think of it like when you open up a soda can and you hear psh, or, you are taking air out of a tire or a ball or something. So the air is inside that can, tire, it's high pressure, and then you open it up, it goes to go to low pressure, passive least resistance. And so where you see those... when that's happening, that's what's creating the wind, because the high pressure, the air is going from the high pressure to low pressure. And so that makes the overall movement. And again, when we see these patterns lined up coming from the Gulf of Mexico or out the Baja Peninsula, that's where we get the juicy moisture and the ingredients to make these big storms. And so then with those, we get the winds that come out in front of it, which we were talking a little bit earlier about. With those, we have the haboobs. Okay, that's, there's a difference between a haboob and a dust storm, and they're both kind of the same thing, but they're caused by different processes. Well, same processes, excuse me, but different scales.
Okay.
When we have a haboob, you'll see it on TV, and actually the best place to see it is click on the TV and watch them with the helicopter.
Because they got the chopper, yeah.
Yep, exactly. And you can see, this thing that's 60, 70 miles wide across the entire, Phoenix metropolitan area, and it's really cool to look at. Now, when you're in it, it is kind of uneventful. It's windy, blustery, and it gets dark. And then I always get a little bit of a headache, and I think it's from all the dust that I'm breathing in. And that's not safe in its own right. I mean, for driving, and then also valley fever is a problem that cause issues with that. So, I mean, honestly, the best place to be is inside.
Yeah, and if you're driving, just pull off to the side, turn off your lights, get your foot off the brake.
And that's the scary part. So I've driven through a couple storms. Most of us have. And so, I mean, everyone slows down. But the question is, did the person in front of you, the idiot, I'm sorry, I'm going to say, did he stop in the middle of the road? You don't know. And then the other thing is, people are, when you're following a car in low visibility, you're looking for brake lights. You're following the lights in front of you. Well, that's the dangerous part, because if you're parked off the side of the road and you have your foot on the brake, guess what? Somebody sees those lights.
And they're like, oh, there's the road. Let's
there's
go
the
that
road,
way.
and then you get rear-ended. So the best thing is pull far off the road as you can, and keep your seatbelts on and stay in the car. And the reason for that is if you do get hit, you want to be in your seatbelts.
Yeah. And not wandering around in front of the semi.
Exactly. And so that is, those are huge events. And as cool as they are from a meteorological standpoint, they really are a serious issue for us out here and dangerous. Now, when we get a thunderstorm that comes, we also see dust storms come out of those. And pretty much when you have a thunderstorm, there's an outflow. And all this air is just coming down, hits the ground, and spreads out. And again, it's still the same thing, high pressure, low pressure. The air is trying to escape. And so you have this big wall of air coming and hitting you. So you'll be sitting in your backyard and blue skies, and all of a sudden the wind just hits hard, and we're talking just instantly. That's usually the gust front coming out and an outflow from those thunderstorms. And
now, is a microburst a massive outflow?
So yes, they're and they can be used they shouldn't be used interchangeably, but you see these terms used interchangeably. But, and a lot of times...
And that's how you know it's a weatherman and not a meteorologist like you.
There is actually a difference between a weatherman and a meteorologist or a forecaster. I mean, to work in television, I didn't have to go get a 4-year college degree, Bachelor's of Science of Meteorology. I could have gone to broadcasting school. And they do have some other programs out there. People can learn about the weather, so they can talk about it on TV. But no, I went the geek science, I tried and true meteorologist. So it's a badge I wear proudly.
It's not on your Klaus Team real estate card, so.
It wasn't pertinent. Maybe, okay, well, next time we order, we'll put it on the back.
Okay.
So with those outflows, and it's actually cool if you guys open up your radar apps on your phones, you can see them, and you see them coming for you, from quite a ways out, because with these outflows, it kicks up a bunch of dust. And dust gets picked up on the radar, and you can actually see the outflow boundaries. So if you're ever looking at the radar and you see this ring, kind of like a half moon shape or rainbow, bow kind of thing that's moving out really quickly, that's the outflow boundary. And so you can watch for that and see where it's coming, and if you're going to be in the pathway of it or not.
This video is brought to you by Klaus Team Real Estate Solutions. The Klaus Team is different. With the Klaus Team, you have someone on your side. Where you live and make memories is important. We have more unique strategies than anyone else to help you accomplish what matters most to you. We can help you with traditional real estate as well as other options such as our lease purchase programs. We can help you buy first then sell, and we can bring you instant offers. We're here to help our neighbors achieve the American dream and help them build wealth through home ownership. For more info or to start your home search, visit us online at klausteam.com. So we generally know that we'll see intermittent monsoons from June to mid-September.
Yes.
How do we know in advance that they're coming on a specific day?
Okay, this is gonna be fun. My wife likes to give me a bunch of crap for this because she always weathermen are always wrong. You never got it right. Here's the problem with these storms is that. When I step out in the morning and I feel humidity, I'm like, there's a chance somebody can get hit today with a storm. But the problem is that these storms, they're pretty localized storms. So in the East Valley, where our office is, it could be getting hammered. But then where I live, which is 60 miles away, nothing. So was the meteorologist correct that, hey, there's storms? Say yes.
They were somewhere.
But it didn't hit me.
Yeah.
My house, so was I right or wrong? So it's kind of, flip the coin here and take your position. But at the end of the day, we know that the conditions are there for this to be a possibility. And that's one thing where, forecasters are going to err on the side of caution because our job in that role is to protect life and property, livestock, and so if you didn't say that there's a chance of it, and then one comes through, and you have a tree sitting across your front yard or your roof, you're going to be mad.
So is that forecasting, is that days in advance that or is it pretty much the same day?
Oh, no. So forecasting, even since I got my college degree, there's been huge advances. And it comes down to computer modeling has gotten way better. So we have a pretty good idea that the conditions are going to be right. Now, obviously, for monsoon season specifically, we know that, hey, when we have the warm ocean out there, we need that ingredient. So if we don't have the warm waters out there, it's going to stifle the juiciness, I like to call it, the storms. That's the mojo behind it. So if we can look in, pretty good 5 to 7 days out, we have a pretty good idea that, hey, these conditions are going to be around. Now, in a 7-day period, if I'm looking 7 days down the road, it might shift a day or two. That's pretty common. But as you get closer, with 3 days, you're pretty you're going to be on. We know it's there. And even everyone flips up their iPhone app or their Android app, the weather app, and looks and see what's there. There's some funny business, in my opinion, about how those forecasts come out. There's some weeks that I've seen this summer even that it's like, oh, it's going to rain all week and didn't get a single drop. I go sit there and look. I love the National Weather Service products. This is their forecast discussion. You can find it on their webpage. It is awesome. I love it. I geek out on it. But if you went and read it, you're going to be like, okay, what are they talking about here? And so that's one big difference when you have, an app telling you what the weather's going to be versus, the National Weather Service webpage or local TV news. There's a human involved in it. We have some great forecasters here in the Valley on TV, and they've been here for, decades. Yeah. They know what they're looking at, and they can put in their human input into what these models are showing. Whereas, we look at our apps, they're doing forecasts for every inch of the globe, wherever you're standing with your phone. That's not a human, that's going to be straight computers. And there's certain things that it doesn't pick up on. Our local topography has a big difference of it too. Where I live, it's windy at my house every evening. Do they forecast that? No. But it's because I live close to the mountains, and in the evening hours, the wind comes down the mountains, and that's how it happens. So
when we have monsoons, and what can homeowners do? Let's talk about that. One thing I know we all have stuff in our backyard.
Yes.
It's loose. I've never lost the cushions on my outdoor furniture, but there's one pillow on it that will find a way to some other spot in the yard. But every time we have one of these things, our neighborhood Facebook page just blows up with people taking pictures of, hey, whose is this? I'll get back to you.
I love it. Like,
whose pool toy is this?
Last summer we had a random trash can that nobody claimed, and there's only like 6 houses on my street. It's like, where'd this trash can come from? So the big thing is, while the storm's going, actually, let's back this up. Before the storm, I mean, it's pretty common for us to look and see what the weather's going to be like. Unless you're completely not paying attention, don't look at your phone, don't watch TV, you should know that there's going to be some chance of the storm. Make sure that all that stuff that's lightweight, that, can be a flying projectile. And, that might sound funny the way I'm saying it, but that's literally what they turn into. When the wind comes, those things get picked up and move, and they become dangerous. And
even stuff that's heavy. I mentioned it on a previous episode on how I had a gazebo end up, a few houses away. You want to make sure you're anchoring all that kind of stuff out of policy.
Again, making sure all that stuff is either inside or, some way contained. This summer, I lost my grill. Literally my big barbecue, all of a sudden I'm sitting there looking out at the storm, and then all of a sudden my barbecue starts sliding across my patio, and then all of a sudden, wham! It's gone.
The previous owner of my house, she was explaining, I have built-in.
Yep.
And she was explaining why she built the built-in. And it was because of that. She was tired of looking outside and seeing the grill just drive by.
Now, if you're standing out there, you might not think it's that windy, but a big thing that people don't think about is all these block walls that we have behind our house. That will funnel winds. And think of like a breezeway. That's the reason why they call them a breezeway. And it's because, it's a confluence where things, the wind gets directed into a smaller area, and what happens, it speeds up. It's, something that's big jammed into a small hole. It contracts, and it has to go somewhere, and so it speeds up, and that's why you will see these weird turbulent winds in your backyard, and all of a sudden your couch cushions or your umbrellas. The umbrellas are dangerous because when those goes flying, that's like a dart.
And they come with a post. Yeah,
exactly. Another thing to think about at your house is after the storm, you go out and look. You have a walkway and you have a roof over your head. Roof tiles are dangerous. And I've actually helped quite a few of my neighbors after storms that come through. You look up above before you walk out underneath because tiles can be hanging on by just one nail that's halfway out. And so that's the first place to look for any damage to your house would be the roof tiles.
And also, if you have a lot of our neighborhoods, we don't have power lines.
Correct.
It's underground. But if your neighborhood has power lines, that's another thing you want to be looking at is look up and make sure that if you do have a drop to your house from the power line, that it's not hanging
in the biggest thing with that is don't drive over it. Don't get near it.
Yeah.
Those things can dance.
Don't poke a stick at it.
Yeah, no. It's one of those things that's like, this is kind of sketchy. You probably just shouldn't do it. And then other things to look at your home. We see a bunch of, when we have the storms come through, moisture comes through, we see extra critters. That's when I start to see scorpions kind of, if you live in an area with scorpions, I start to see more of them. Toads, desert toads, and other snakes.
Yeah.
If they're not in their little burrow or home, whatever, they're going to look for somewhere to hunker down. And so when
and the toads, the only time we'll see them is monsoons.
And again, all these reptiles, they're looking for moisture. It's desert, and so when they get a chance to drink something, they're out.
Yep.
So that's another thing to be careful of, especially when you're picking up those couch cushions and things like that. There could be something underneath them.
Yeah, if you pick up one of those toads, make sure you wash your hands. Make sure you keep them away from your dogs because they're toxic to animals. And they're toxic. Don't lick them.
No, I heard that.
No, but it's they're huge, and they just. People, why don't we see them the rest of the time? Because they're burrowed underground until there's moisture, and then they come out, they breed, and then they bury themselves back down for another 9 months.
And then other things to think about at the house, obviously garage doors, if we get some strong winds and the way that your house is positioned, it could be in a way that it take it off track. Another thing is when you do have strong winds coming through, don't operate your garage door up and down unless you have to, because that increases the likelihood that thing's going to get off track and cause a problem for you. And other than that, the big thing is just, plan ahead, because we know this happens every year.
Mm-hmm.
There's simple things you can do, and think about this. Like, all right, I have this cute little knickknack, decoration to put in my backyard. It's like, all right, well, we're inevitably gonna get winds. What's gonna happen with it? So just thinking ahead.
If you have any questions about real estate for Rob or myself, reach out to us at klausteam.com. That's 480-354-7344. Thanks a lot, Rob.
No problem. Thank you.
Thanks for spending time with us this week at State 48 Homeowner, the ins and outs of owning an Arizona home. You can connect with us for more information, submit topics you'd like us to discuss further, and you can see relevant videos, give us feedback, answer your real estate questions, and more at state48homeowner.com.